From the evidence found at the scene of a double homicide, police suspected there might have been two perpetrators until they noticed a clue. A small shard of glass on the bottom of one of the victim's shoes, which brought the whole crime into focus. In December 1996, a mail carrier in Toledo, Ohio, noticed mail piling up outside the home of Gertrude Thompson and Edward Kowalczyk. Neighbors said they hadn't seen the elderly couple for the last few days. 69-year-old Gertrude, Trudy to her friends, and 72-year-old Edward had been living together for the past several years. No one could see inside the house since the windows were covered with plastic, cardboard, and aluminum foil in an effort to preserve heat. Not knowing what else to do, neighbors called police.
When I first went in, I observed a lot of what appeared to be personal effects of the residents there, like boxes packed up. It appeared to me someone might have been preparing to move out of the house.
But in the disarray, detectives found Trudy Thompson and Ed Kowalczyk dead on the living room floor. They had been dead for several days. And it was no ordinary murder.
It's just so violent. You could see the bludgeon, cut marks, stabs. One of the worst crime scenes I ever seen as a police officer.
An autopsy revealed that Trudy and Ed had died of blunt force injuries to the head. Other evidence suggested that the assailant had wanted information from the victims.
Just slight wounds, puncture wounds, where this person probably was saying, where's the money, or something like that, and just torture to make a person talk.
There was a great deal of chaos there. In fact, it appeared as though this was almost a frenzy type of murder. The perpetrator or perpetrators grabbed anything that was available to them in the house and used it as instruments.
We always assumed there was at least two people that were involved. And that's just because it was a double homicide with two bodies right next to each other. And they weren't killed with firearms, they were killed slowly with hand weapons.
Detectives noticed that there had been no forced entry into the house.
Well, it tells me that possibly the person that committed this crime probably knew the victims and probably was let in.
Ed and Trudy not only lived together, they were business partners. They owned several properties that they rented to lower-income residents and college students. When a tenant moved out, the couple usually kept items left behind, never throwing them away. This made it hard to know what, if anything, was missing.
We were finding money hidden in books and in wallets that were still in their package, and in places where they would hide things that no one would think to look.
Family members told police that a necklace Trudy Thompson wore around her neck every day was missing. It was a gold elephant pendant, a gift her father had given her years earlier as a child in Austria. The pendant was supposed to bring good luck.
The police knew pretty quickly how important that was. If you could track a piece of stolen property back through a chain of owners, you can learn eventually, hopefully, who had taken it from Gertrude Thompson.
So police put a photograph of the pendant on the front page of the local newspaper, the Toledo Blade. No one responded, and none of the second-hand jewelry dealers in town had seen it either. In gathering information about the couple, Ed's daughter, Denise Kowalczyk, said that Trudy was a tough businesswoman.
I felt that Trudy could be bossy and domineering. I think she was probably argumentative with her tenants and my father.
Family members suspected that the motive wasn't robbery, but it was some sort of business disagreement.
A tenant that was really, really mad at them, mostly her. It's not totally unreal that this would happen because of the people they rented to.
That information, along with a message on the couple's telephone answering machine, would identify just that, one of the couple's tenants, someone police called the perfect suspect. When landlords Trudy Thompson and Ed Kowalczyk were found murdered in their home, police and forensic scientists sorted through the physical evidence at the crime scene for possible clues. Forensic pathologist Dr. Diane Barnett first wanted to identify the murder weapon.
She had long linear impressions, tool marks on the skull. She had a very characteristic beating pattern that had been left on the outer table of the calvarium. And she also had suggestions of a corner of something, like a divot type of impression.
Dr. Barnett was able to match those wounds to a rectangular base lamp at the murder scene. Forensic anthropologist Julie Saul matched another head wound to a brass lamp found near the bodies.
Looking at the lamp base with the beading near the edge and the tool marks on the bone, I could tell them that this was consistent with having made that mark, and it was very likely that it could have made that mark.
None of these items, however, contained fingerprints. The coroner determined Trudy and Ed had fought off their attacker or attackers since they had defensive cut wounds on their hands that could have been made by a knife. And a tiny clue on the bottom of Ed Kowalczyk's shoes answered an important question. It was a tiny piece of glass embedded in the bottom of his galoshes. That glass came from a broken light bulb, leading investigators to believe that Ed entered the room sometime after the attack started. Most likely, he walked in from outside since his coat was found at the front door. In a search for suspects, the first clue came from the couple's telephone answering machine.
A lot of the tape was complaints from various tenants because Gertrude Thompson and Edward Kowalczyk were landlords. Were people calling in, leaving them messages.
But only one tenant had called numerous times. His name was Ethan Walls. When questioned, Walls told police that he stopped by Ed and Trudy's home to make his rent payment, noticed the overflowing mailbox, knocked on the door, and when there was no answer, he said he left his rent check there and went home.
I put it in their mailbox. There was a lot of mail in the box. I didn't think anything of it. 2-3 more days went by. I had left a note for them to contact me. No one ever got in touch with me.
Walls then admitted he went back to Ed and Trudy's house, retrieved his rent money, and spent it. These two admissions placed Walls at the scene twice around the time the murders took place.
And all of a sudden, Ethan's telling him this very bizarre story about dropping off a check and then coming back and picking it up.
In addition, an informant called police to say she had seen Ethan Walls at the home of a well-known drug dealer around the time of the murders. She also said Walls' shirt was spattered with blood.
Based on the blood spatter on the ceilings, on the walls, the condition of the victims' bodies, you knew the guy that did this had to have gotten covered in blood. You knew that.
Walls vehemently denied the informant's story.
This is a lie. From where did it come from? Who put you up to saying what you said? Which is, it's not true. Totally fabricated.
In examining the blood spatter at the crime scene, detectives noticed a significant clue. The blood spatter was in 2 different shapes and told 2 different stories. In one area, the spots were elongated and radiated from where the beatings took place.
blood that comes from an angle is longer and more oval, usually with a little tail at the end of it. The longer and more oval the spatter is, the greater the angle that it came from.
In another area, away from the bodies, there were several blood spots that were perfect circles, including 2 on the inside of a broken ceramic vase and 1 on a piece of paper in the desk drawer.
The blood that was on these items was dripped straight down as if from right above. So from that we were able to determine that this blood most likely did not come from these 2 victims and was therefore most likely the suspect's blood.
The blood was consistent with someone standing still but bleeding, and the blood dripping down on the items below. Police confiscated every knife they could find in Ethan Wall's home, testing them for human blood to see if any were used in the murders. None of them tested positive for human blood. They also compared all of Wall's shoes to a bloody foot impression found at the crime scene. None matched. But since the perpetrator left blood at the crime scene, investigators had a definitive way to tell if the blood belonged to Wall's.
You know, DNA, I mean, 1 drop of blood looks the same. Your blood looks just identical to mine. It's those little scientists who can differentiate between 1 drop and another.
The results surprised everyone, especially Ethan Wall's.
They arrested me like 5 months after the DNA. That's the part that I still right now today don't understand.
Toledo police had a suspect in the murder of 2 elderly landlords. One of their tenants, Ethan Wall's, who swore he was innocent. Wall's had been to the couple's house around the time of the murders, and an informant claimed she saw Wall's at a drug party with blood on his shirt around the same time. Wall's gave police a blood sample so they could compare it to blood found at the murder scene. Investigators believe the killer cut himself while swinging a crystal lamp to beat the victims.
We surmised that that was probably how he held the lamp as he hit them with the heavy metal base of the lamp. And when that crystal broke in his hand, that's probably how he cut himself.
Forensic scientists analyzed the DNA of all the blood at the murder scene. On the crystal lamp, there was a mixture of blood from 3 people, the 2 victims and the killers. DNA analyst Angela Lanine compared Ethan Wall's blood to the mixture. If it matched, 2 numbered markers or bands would match those found in the mixture.
Ethan Wall's pattern was an 18 and a 28. The mixture also had an 18, but it did not have a 28. So he can automatically be excluded as contributing to the mixture of that specimen.
But prosecutors always suspected that there may have been more than 1 perpetrator, and based on the informant's testimony, that Wall's was one of the 2. Wall's was arrested and charged with the murder of Trudy Thompson and Ed Kowalczyk.
The day I was arrested, last thing I said to them, please don't stop looking for the killer. Because while y'all focusing on me, somebody is getting away with it. That was the very last thing I said as they put them cuffs on me. Don't stop looking.
Ethan Wall's knew he could face the death penalty if convicted. He was consumed with anger and frustration.
It's like if you're down in a well and you hollering at the top of your voice. Can't nobody hear you, though. You know what I mean? I'm innocent, man. Can't nobody hear you, though.
As prosecutors were preparing to try Ethan Wall's, their star witness, the informant, made a startling confession to prosecutor Tim Braun. She now said she had lied about Ethan Wall's.
We never were given a good explanation as to what her reasons were. Other than she's saying, I lied about the man and this isn't right and I'm not going to testify against him, we can't necessarily control all the pressures that come onto a witness. And she flipped, and that's the only way to describe it. She flipped completely 180 degrees the other way.
Braun had no choice but to dismiss the charges against Ethan Walls.
You know, the day you dismiss a death penalty case when you're a prosecutor, it's a bad, bad day. Because everything you've been working on for a long period of time has just blown up in your face.
I was confident that I would go home. That never, ever wavered in my mind. I knew I was going home.
For the victims' families, it reopened the fear.
That there was maybe someone out there that might be really sick and evil, that they could do something to someone else.
And for police, it was back to square one.
It was very frustrating because we had 2 elderly people murdered brutally in our community. We felt we had some good evidence, blood, and the missing pendant. If we could nail that down, we definitely would have a person that we could totally concentrate on.
For the next 2 years, police made no further progress.
All the detectives talk about the 72-hour rule. If a case isn't solved within 3 days, the chances of it getting solved go way, way down. And that's true. And this was not solved within 3 days. But they kept going.
For 2 years after the murders of Trudy Thompson and Ed Kowalczyk, investigators pursued various leads in the case with no success. But in July of 1998, their luck changed. The daughter of pawn shop owner Annette Cheverini decided to help her mother clean up some of the old newspapers and magazines that had collected over the years.
My mother is more than eccentric. She believes in not throwing anything away type of an attitude. She's a collector.
But Annette wanted something to read that afternoon to pass the time.
She reaches in the middle of the stack of newspapers and pulls a newspaper out. Sure enough, she opens it up and she starts to read this article that was there from the Toledo Police Department about a double homicide.
It was the 2-year-old newspaper article about the murder of Trudy Thompson and Ed Kowalczyk. When she looked at the victims' photographs, she noticed something familiar: the gold elephant pendant around Trudy Thompson's neck.
She calls me on the phone and starts screaming about, where's this elephant pendant? Where's it? I said, Mom, it's in the safe.
Mrs. Cheverini had been unable to sell the pendant. It looked identical to the one Trudy Thompson was wearing in the newspaper photograph.
That's 1 in a million, I would say, for her to keep a newspaper like that.
Fortunately, Mrs. Cheverini kept all her old pawn tickets. The one for the pendant was dated December 3rd, 1996, around the time of the couple's murder, and it identified Gordy Candy as the seller. Candy said he was only a messenger, that it was James Jordan who had asked him to pawn the necklace for him. Jordan had been working as a handyman for Trudy Thompson at the time of her murder. A background check indicated that Jordan was arrested just a few weeks after the murders for another robbery and was currently serving a 45-year prison sentence in Texas. When questioned, Jordan denied he killed the elderly couple. Scientists swabbed the inside of his cheek for a sample of his DNA, which was then compared to the blood drops at the crime scene.
We concluded that James Jordan was the person that left blood at the crime scene.
James Jordan was charged with killing Gertrude Thompson and Edward Kowalczyk. Prosecutors believe the motive was robbery, to steal money from the rent payments to use for drugs. They think Jordan first tortured and killed Trudy, cutting his hand with a broken lamp and leaving blood drops in the living room. When Ed walked in later from outside, Jordan killed him too. As he was looking for money, blood from his hand dripped into the desk drawer. Before leaving, Jordan took Trudy's elephant pendant, then asked a friend to pawn it for him. The pendant fetched all of $20. That $20 transaction led to Jordan's capture.
He had to cash in that pendant. And but for that reckless act, we never would have linked him back.
In court, Jordan represented himself and tried to explain why his blood was found in Trudy's desk.
He explained the drops of blood inside her desk as being that's where she used to keep her Band-Aids. And so sometime when he was moving furniture or doing something, he must have shed a drop of blood while he was looking for a Band-Aid.
But Jordan couldn't explain his blood drops inside the broken vase, and he said he had Trudy's elephant pendant because she gave it to him as payment for his handyman services. But the jury did not believe his story.
We find the defendant guilty of aggravated murder.
James Jordan was convicted of 2 counts of aggravated murder and was sentenced to death. The case was solved thanks to the pawn shop owner who never threw anything away, and the forensic scientist's ability to recreate the crime based on the physical evidence.
The police work combined with luck and scientific evidence, a little bit of both, a little bit of everything. It all goes together.